New Delhi government tried cloud seeding with help of IIT Kanpur, but it failed. So then we should, as an aware candidate, we should know that why it failed, under what conditions it would have worked, why it failed in this specific condition. Science and tech is mostly analytical, logical, conceptual. It is based on, it is application-based questions which are going to be asked by UPSC rather than factual question. I want to assure all of you, all of the aspirants, that irrespective of your educational background, you are not at all in any way at disadvantage when it comes to science and tech questions, either in prelims or mains examination. Okay. Basic science questions can be answered either with NCERTs or they have been covered into newspaper that integrate current affairs with static. You have prepared your main theme, you have prepared your sub-themes, and then you are updating your knowledge with help of reading newspaper or monthly magazine. Hello everyone. We are going to have a short session regarding how to prepare science and technology for prelims examination. So those who are going to appear in 2026 or even in later years, essentially I'm going to talk about a framework which can be adopted by aspirants regarding your science and tech preparation. Right? I'm going to divide this session into few parts. We will talk about the basic nature of this subject first. We'll talk about some of the challenges associated with this subject which often aspirants face. We will talk about some of the pitfalls which you need to avoid and what you actually need to do. And then in the end, I'm going to give you a few examples from previous year questions of whatever we have discussed, right? So I'm calling this session How to Approach Science and Technology for UPSC Prelims 2026. But again, the framework which I'm going to talk about can be adopted for other years also. I'm not essentially here to teach a specific science and tech topic, but it's more about how to approach the subject for UPSC. So let's start with a very simple and very basic question, that why this subject is part of your syllabus. For example, when you look at your UPSC syllabus, you see polity, you see economy, and it makes obvious sense that why polity should be part of the syllabus, why economy should be part of the syllabus. So we can ask a question that why science and technology is part of the syllabus, right? And the answer is not actually very difficult to comprehend. The answer is very simple and very straightforward. Because think about it, you are preparing for an examination where you will be at the position of power where you are going to design public policy. Public policy for the developmental challenges which we as a nation are facing. So think of the social problems or the economic problems or the environmental problems when we talk about. And then we ask a question that how technology can help in solving those problems, right? So the first reason why you should do this, because you're supposed to be an aware candidate. Remember, you are preparing for UPSC. You're supposed to be an aware candidate. So whatever is happening in the world, in the domain of science and technology, apart from, let's say, whatever is happening in global economy or global affairs, whatever is happening in science and technology, that in itself you have to know. So this is the fact that you are an aware student, you're supposed to know this topic. But then we go further, we probe deeper, and you realize that whenever we think of some particular problem we are facing as a nation or as one of the state within this country or one place within a state, then to tackle those problems, what type of solutions can be implemented? I will give you a very practical example. Right now I'm in New Delhi and air pollution is this, every year in the winter, air pollution remains in news. So one way to study about this entire topic will be that why air pollution is a big problem in New Delhi and why this is a big problem particularly in winter. So why this is a big problem in New Delhi, you look at the sources of pollution, right? Why it is a problem particularly in Delhi NCR region, and why in winter You look at the geographical factors, right? But then you ask this question that what can we do? Now, apart from uh, looking at the sources and reducing the pollutants at the sources itself, we can always talk about technological solution. Cloud seeding, for example, is a technological solution. When can cloud seeding work? When it cannot. This is something which an aware candidate is expected to know. For example, you must have read that New Delhi government tried cloud seeding with help of IIT Kanpur, but it failed. So then we should, as an aware candidate, we should know that why it failed, under what conditions it would have worked, why it failed in this specific condition. So this is where science and tech comes into play. That we are looking at developmental challenges as a nation, developmental challenges which we face as a nation, and how technology can solve in solving those challenges. So as a bureaucrat, when you become a bureaucrat, you are supposed to know that. You're supposed to be aware about that. You're supposed to provide your input about that. And that is why this subject is part of the syllabus. Okay, let's jump into the subject for UPSC Prelims examination particularly. The prima facie, it appears to be a difficult topic. And I have been teaching this subject for many years now. And I found that among humanities background students, particularly, there is a fear. A lot of technical terms are there. You have not studied science after class 10th or class 12th. And as a result of that, you might have some sort of hesitation towards this subject, and you might feel more scared of this subject. And I am here to tell you that that is a very irrational fear. It doesn't matter at all that if you have studied science in class 10th or 12th or graduation, as long as you have studied science till class 10th, you can attempt most of the questions of science and technology. In fact, I am telling you that there are very few sections of your entire prelims or main syllabus where you can attempt maximum number of questions. So let's say UPSC asks on an average about 12 questions in prelims from science and tech. Out of 12, all of you, irrespective of the educational background, you can attempt 10 or maybe all 12 of them. And you can also maintain an accuracy of 80 to 90%, which cannot be said for many other subjects which prima facie appear simple and straightforward. And the reason is very simple. Science and tech is mostly analytical, logical, conceptual. It is based on, it is application-based questions which are going to be asked by UPSC rather than factual question. By the way, there is a caveat. There will be few factual questions. Don't misquote me in the sense, so I do not want this confusion that there will not be any factual question. There will be few factual questions, but it will be very few questions. Out of 12, maybe 1 or 2 will be factual questions. And even those facts, they must have been covered somewhere in newspaper, and that is why they have been picked by UPSC. So the first thing I want to assure all of you, all of the aspirants, that irrespective of your educational background, you are not at all in any way at disadvantage when it comes to science and tech questions, either in prelims or mains examination. Okay. So, but there are other reasons why this appears to be difficult. For example, the syllabus is not fixed. If you look at the prelims syllabus, 2 words are given: general science. That does not tell you anything. If you look at the mains syllabus, few keywords are given. That gives you some sort of indication that what type of topics you're supposed to study. But I'm going to add many more keywords. At the end of the session, I'm going to tell you that which are the topics, which are the main themes you have to prepare for prelims examination. Okay. Then there is a huge confusion between the static part and the current affairs part. How much basic science, how much technology, how much depth I have to go into, right? So many technical terms are emerging, and we do not know the meaning of those technical terms. And so few things which we immediately should know, that very few questions from basic science is being asked these days. Most of the questions are from technology part, the application part, but few questions from basic science will be there. But those basic science questions can be answered either with NCERTs or they have been covered into newspaper. So for example, some research is happening in domain of astronomy or particle physics, or some new development has happened in biotechnology. So the basic science about that can be asked by UPSC. So either from NCERT or from newspaper, all of the basic science questions can be answered. But I repeat, most of the questions will be from the technology part, the application part. And I'm going to show you a few examples in the end for that. So how should we approach this subject? Let's start with some pitfalls which you must avoid. You must not go running after rote learning, that you're trying to memorize a lot of facts. Don't do that. Whenever you come across a particular topic, you try to understand that in very simpler words. I will give you an example. Let's say you read about artificial intelligence. You have come across this term. This is so much in news now. But I will approach this as a curious student, that when I use the word artificial intelligence, what does it mean? Right? I do not want to become a programmer in AI. I do not have to do some machine learning program here. I will simply start with, what do I mean by the term artificial intelligence? What makes a machine intelligent? What are the ways to achieve that? How are we using that across different domains? What type of applications it has right now? What type of challenges there are associated with AI right now? What is India doing in the domain of AI right now? This is how, as a UPSC aspirant, I'm going to approach this topic of artificial intelligence. Right? I do not have to write a machine learning algorithm, but I should know that machine learning is a subset of AI. I should know in one line the basic meaning of the term machine learning, the basic meaning of the term deep learning. And turns out that even if you know the basic meaning of things, you can answer most of the questions of prelims examination. Right? So I've given an example here, that let's say you come across quantum communication, a topic which has, by the way, not been asked by UPSC till now. They have asked question on quantum computing, but not on quantum communication. So rather than focusing upon who has developed quantum communication, when was it developed, this is not important. What does it do? How is it different from other type of communication method? That is those questions are more important questions which you should prepare as an aspirant, right? So you have to prioritize certain sections. You have to prioritize certain type of topics, which I'm going to discuss. But you have to prioritize applications part, that how a particular technology, so let's say blockchain, you read about blockchain technology. You read about genome sequencing, right? So how it has application, what type of applications it can have. In India, if something is being done by government of India, then which institutions are responsible for it? So for example, let's say there is a government scheme under Department of Science and Technology, you should know about that. ISRO is doing something, you should know about that. Department of Atomic Energy is doing something, you should know about that. Ministry of Earth Sciences is doing something, you should know about that. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is doing something, you should know about them. So I've told you about many institutions which are involved in the domain of science and technology. What type of government schemes, what type of government missions, policies, you have to prepare those topics either for prelims or for mains examination, right? So do not run after remembering data, focus on the application, focus on the understanding part. I will talk about what are the important themes again in the end. The next thing which you have to do, that the entire science and tech, you divide that into some small subtopics. In fact, let me talk about that. Let me directly talk about that. How, because there is no keyword given in your prelim syllabus. So looking at the previous year questions, how can we divide prelim syllabus into certain type of themes? So all of the aspirants, what you should do, you should divide entire science and tech as one main subject into many sub-themes. And those themes should be further divided into subtopics. For example, one of the topic is, let's say, space technology. So you ask basic question about space technology. What does it mean? What do we do in space technology? Okay, we have many type of satellites. What type of things those satellites do? Where are we using those satellites? What type of satellites ISRO is launching? These are the questions you are going to ask. To launch satellites, we have to use rockets. What type of rockets are there? Ask those questions. Apart from satellites, what else India as a nation is doing in space? So for example, Chandrayaan 3 or Gaganyaan mission or Shukrayaan mission, some future upcoming missions, you have to prepare those topics. Some recent missions like Aditya L1 mission, you prepare those topics. Similarly in astronomy, now this will have a lot of overlap with your basic science. Astronomy is a domain where a lot of work is happening, a lot of data we still are gathering from various type of telescopes. So if there is a news from astronomy, I update that. So how I will prepare this topic? I will first prepare the basic part of space technology or astronomy. I have a basic awareness about this theme, and then I integrate that with current affairs. I come across a news about a satellite launch. Once I understand the basic, I immediately can appreciate that what type of satellite it is, in what type of orbit it has been launched, what type of applications it is going to have, which rocket was used to launch these satellites. These things will automatically make sense to me. I do not have to memorize anything. So that is what I meant when I said that do not go after rote learning. Focus upon the understanding part. Do that in information and communication technology. This is particularly a very important domain for prelims examination. All of the digital technologies, so communication technologies, computing technologies, so things like all of the advancements in communication such as 5G, Li-Fi, advancements in Wi-Fi, satellite-based internet, or advancements in computing such as artificial intelligence, such as quantum computing, such as blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. All of those things will fit into this topic, one major topic. Now within AI, within this, some of those topics are very vast. So AI in itself is a very vast topic. Quantum computing in itself is a vast topic. Blockchain technology is a vast topic. So I make those subtopics. Within blockchain technology, you learn about, let's say, smart contracts. You learn about Web 3.0. You learn about cryptocurrencies, right? So this is how you are going to approach this topic. You divide science and tech into main themes. Those main themes, you divide them further into sub-themes. You have a basic awareness about all of those sub-themes. And when you read now newspaper next, you immediately know that this news fits into one particular sub-theme of a larger theme. You do the same thing for biotechnology and health. You prepare your basic notes about biotechnology. You first acquaint yourself with this domain of bio. What do I mean by the term biotechnology? What are the tools available for us which allows us to do biotechnology? What type of applications, different technologies, which I'm saying that this is part of biotechnology, where are we using them? Is Government of India doing something in this particular regard? You do that for biotechnology. In health, this is very much current affairs driven. If you have some disease in news, what type of disease it is? What pathogens are causing that disease? How those pathogens are spreading among human beings? What is the mechanism of that spread? Do we have some therapy available for that particular disease? Do we have some treatment, vaccines available for those diseases? If a new vaccine is in news, then you read about that, how does that vaccine function? So this is how you approach this topic. Here also, you first prepare the basic aspects of health and then you update that with current affairs. For example, I learned about pathogens, I learned about bacteria, I learned about viruses, I learned about protozoas, worms, different type of pathogens. I also learned about that there are many diseases which are not because of pathogens. These are non-communicable diseases. Many of them are lifestyle disorder. What type of diseases are they? So such type of questions you should ask in healthcare. Another theme which is very important, energy. You'll find in last 3-4 years, many questions are being asked from this. And you should immediately appreciate that why is it so? Energy security is such an important concern for any nation. As a country, we have to be secure in terms of energy. We should not be vulnerable to global shocks in the energy market. We should be able to absorb that shock. That is going to happen when we are producing a lot of energy of our own and we have diversified our energy sources. So we ask this question, that apart from fossil fuel, what are other sources of energy? So you have nuclear energy, you have renewable energy. Within renewable energy, you have solar energy, wind energy, hydropower, green hydrogen. You learn about all of them. You learn the basics of all of them. And then if something from current affairs in renewable energy is there in newspaper, you immediately know that this is where you have to update your notes. So how do I approach this topic? I divide this entire science and tech subject into main themes: space technology, astronomy, information and communication technology, biotechnology and health, energy resources, defense technology. You'll find many questions these days asked from defense technology, nuclear technology, nanotechnology and material science, a topic which people do not talk about enough. Material science is the revolution behind many domains of technology. The fact that we have exotic materials with unique set of applications, unique properties and applications is remarkable. Technological solution to environmental problem. Now this is something which generally is taught in environment classes, but think about it. Let's say, look at the question asked by UPSC this year, cloud seeding, right? Or last year there was a question about membrane bioreactor technology, right? So when you look at or activated carbon filter technology, which was asked this year, so you immediately see that this is also a very popular theme, which is generally taught in environment classes. But think about it. It is a type of technology we are talking about, which can help in solving many of our environmental problems, air pollution, water pollution, waste management, global warming, in such type of problems. So this is also a domain which you should prepare well. So what I expect all of you to do, that you should have basic awareness about all of these main themes. Within each and every theme, there are a lot of possible sub-themes. You become aware about that, and then you update your knowledge with current affairs. And that is what I meant in the previous slide, that integrate current affairs with static. You have prepared your main theme, you have prepared your sub-themes, and then you are updating your knowledge with help of reading newspaper or monthly magazine. One of the very good resource can be that you can read, for example, Vision IS monthly magazine. However, you should try to do newspaper updation by yourself. That you read newspaper by yourself and you update your notes. When you read monthly magazine, it should be deja vu. That you already know this, you already have read about this. So that is how you should think about current affairs. I'm going to do things first by myself, and then I'm going to revise those things with help of monthly magazine. So integrating current affairs with static, this is very, very important. Now a question I mentioned earlier, or a point I mentioned earlier, that many students from non-technical background, there is some sort of fear about this subject. So isko resolve karna, dekho do cheezein hain. Just two things you have to remember. Every new subject has a lot of proper nouns, lot of names you have to remember. But always remember that these are nothing but proper nouns. Proper nouns should not scare you. It's like remembering names of people. If you can know what a particular proper noun mean, that is what you have to do, right? So, and this is the beauty of science, that yes, there is a proper noun. I throw you a term blockchain technology, and you suddenly are scared of it. But the moment you learn about it, that okay, what it is trying to do, how it is trying to do that, and you realize that this is such a simple topic. I throw a word remote sensing to you, right? I talk about deep learning, I throw a word deep learning at you, and it looks scary, but not at all. It has a very simple, straightforward meaning. So this is what you have to do, that whenever you come across a topic, you ask this question, that what it is and what type of problem this technology can solve. So I will go back to what I mentioned earlier. Focus upon the application part, not on the rote learning part, not on the even technical part. So if I throw the word deep learning to you, I do not expect you to go and write a deep learning program, but I expect you to know that what does it mean? What does this term mean? How are we using this across different domains? What type of problems we are trying to solve from this particular technology? Try to look at some of the examples from current affairs, and that will help you in visualizing and retaining this particular topic. How do I make notes? Your notes should be crisp and concise for each and every topic. Do not write each and everything. When you read newspapers, what is the main idea of a particular article from Science and Tech? What is the main technology which has been discussed there? Do I know about that particular technology? Do I know the applications of that particular technology? Focus upon that part. Ignore the technical details. Right? Hindu, for example, goes into a lot of technical detail, and students often have faced this problem, that should I know all of this technical detail? And most of the time the answer is no, that you do not have to know all of those technical details. You do need to have awareness about that topic and how technology can be used across different domains, what type of applications it does have. So avoid rote learning, update your current affairs, try to be as crisp, as concise as possible, try to make flowcharts, try to connect topics, right? This will take time, it will not immediately become clear, but gradually you will realize that how things become connected with each other. How do I revise this? Once you have make your crisp, concise note, after every few days, keep revising it. There is a scientific way of revision, which I'm going to discuss in a moment. But before that, this is the slide which I discussed. I spent some time that these are the themes you have to prepare, okay? So let me tell you some of the practical tips, which is not going to help you just in Science and Tech, but also overall in your preparation. That how can you concentrate more? How can you revise well? You can concentrate more using this technique called Pomodoro technique. In Pomodoro technique, what you can do, you can study for 25 minutes and you can take a break for 5 minutes. Do that 3-4 times and then you can take a break for half an hour. There are few apps which help you in doing that. One of that app, for example, I use is called Focus to Do or Focus Keeper. And this app helps me in concentrating more. That I am not going to get distracted by random notifications on my mobile phone. If I'm studying right now, I will study continuously for 25 minutes and I will only take break for 5 minutes. Whatever Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever I want to check, I'm going to do that in 5 minutes. And then again, I go back to my study. I do that 3-4 times and then I can take a break for half an hour. Build this habit and you will realize that your body becomes attuned to it. You are forming a good habit. You are concentrating more. You are not suffering from that attention deficit disorder, that you cannot concentrate for very long on a particular topic. This mobile phone is one of the biggest enemy regarding your preparation. That this easily accessible device at your fingertip, it is one of the biggest enemy in helping, essentially it's a barrier in concentration. So use Pomodoro technique. There are certain apps which will make your phone silent, and then you can become better at your studies. Regarding revision, you can increase the gap of revision. So whatever you have studied today, revise it tomorrow, revise it 3 days later, then 7 days later, then 15 days later, then some 40 days later. So you keep adding the gap between revision, which allows you to read more and more topics. It gives you enough space that you can revise more and more topics. So that is how you should think about revision strategy. Focus upon good habits. Build a habit of studying. Your effort should not be erratic function. That if you're studying for 6 hours, you're studying for 6 hours on a daily basis without any single exception. Focus upon that part. That is much more better than studying 2 days for 10 hours and then taking a break for 1 or 2 days. That's worse. So if you're studying for 6 to 7 hours, do that, but do that on a daily basis without making a single exception. So focus on good habit formation, right? And I cannot re-emphasize the significance of taking a good sleep, even 10 to 15 minute jogging, or even 4 to 5 minutes of meditation. That will help you in longer run, not just for preparation, but overall in life, but it will definitely help in preparation. What are the sources you are going to refer to? You'll read monthly magazine, you'll read PT 365, but most importantly, you are going to read the Hindu and Indian Express by yourself, and you're going to update your notes with help of Hindu and Indian Express. And you can also, for government schemes, policies, etc., you can read Press Information Bureau. Okay, so let me conclude this entire session by showing you some questions from different topics. What I meant when I said about this, for example, this is a question about basic science. What is the purpose of Evolved LISA project? This was asked in 2017. This is from current affairs. Even knowing in one line that what was the purpose of ELISA is more than enough. Some words are thrown at you: event horizon, singularity, string theory, standard model. And you are only supposed to know that they are with respect to observation and understanding of the universe. Nobody is expecting you to know standard model in detail, but knowing that it has something to do with understanding nature at very smaller scale is more than enough to answer this question. There are many such questions. All of these questions are questions of basic science. Simple questions which can be answered from NCERT. What are the fundamental differences between plant cell and animal cell? This is when you study about cells, this is the first thing you study. The difference between, you study organelles, and then you study difference between plant cells and animal cells. From space technology, a comparison between two rockets of ISRO, PSLV and GSLV. Applications of GPS technology. Technology and its applications. Applications of another remote sensing technology. So you can see that what type of questions is being asked. Questions are awareness-based questions. Questions are application-based questions. Another awareness-based question: if a major storm reaches the earth, solar storm reaches the earth, what of the following are possible effects on earth? Even knowing that solar storm has nothing to do with tsunami is more than enough to answer this question. Second is wrong and you have your answer. So you realize that questions are simple, questions are straightforward. Sometimes they are factual. This is a factual question. Which of the following countries has its own satellite navigation system? As I said earlier, some questions will be factual. This is one of those examples. And the answer here is that Japan has its own satellite navigation system. But if you do not know this specific fact, then you cannot eliminate options and arrive at the right answer. So you have to be also beware of such type of questions when you appear in the examination. That even though it is science and tech, if it is factual, you will not attempt that question. Okay. Another conceptual question: giant stars live much longer than dwarf star. Compared to dwarf star, giant stars have a greater rate of nuclear reaction. A question of biotechnology: genome sequencing, it remains in news. It can be used to identify genetic markers for disease. It helps in reducing the time required to develop new varieties of crop plants. It can be used to decipher the host pathogen relationship in crops. So again, you can see that how application part is much more important for UPSC. I will show you a few questions from energy. 2025. Consider the following types of vehicles. How many of the above are considered alternative power terrain vehicles? Vehicles which use alternative source of energy, not fossil fuel source of energy. Such a simple question. All three of them are correct here. A question of basic science, again from energy. In the context of electric vehicle batteries, consider the following elements: cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel. How many of the above usually make up battery cathodes? This is a question of basic science. Question from material science. In which of the following hydrogels are used? 3 applications are given. So the point I'm trying to make here is that questions are factual, but they are very rare. Most of the questions are analysis based question. They are conceptual question. They are application based question. And these questions can be answered easily. So this topic, even though prima facie may appear as a difficult topic, this is actually one of the simplest topic for prelims examination. And irrespective of your educational background, all of you can do really, really well in this particular subject. So the first thing which you need to do is that remove that fear, that barrier you might have in your mind. This is a difficult subject. Remove that. That's not correct at all. And you realize that this is actually quite simple and straightforward topic. And it is much more attemptable topic where you can have higher percentage of attempt and higher level of accuracy. Okay. So with that, let me conclude this session. And if you do have doubt, you can ask, you can send me a mail. All the best, guys.